There comes a point in every person's life when the silence gets too loud, when the heartbreak doesn't heal as quickly as it used to, when the questions outnumber the answers, and you're left wondering if anyone, even God, was ever listening. You show up, you do your best, you smile at the right times, you keep yourself busy, and still, something inside you feels like it's collapsing in slow motion. You look back at the betrayal that blindsided you, the rejection that shattered your confidence, the grief that swallowed your joy, and you wonder, why? Why did this happen? And where was God when it did? It's okay to ask that. You don't have to pretend it didn't hurt. The pain you carry is not weakness. It's not lack of faith. It's not proof that you failed. It's proof that you're alive, that your heart was open, that you trusted, that you hoped. But let me say something that may shift the very foundation of how you view that pain. The suffering you walked through doesn't mean God abandoned you. In fact, He was never closer than in those moments. He was not the cause of your hurt. He didn't orchestrate the betrayal. He didn't command the abuse. He didn't author the silence. This brokenness came from a world where love has often been distorted, where people make choices that grieve His very spirit. But He entered into that pain with you, quietly, deeply, faithfully. Even when you couldn't feel Him, He was there, not as a distant observer, but as a quiet companion, mourning with you, holding you when you were too tired to stand, preparing to redeem what seemed beyond repair. So many of us have been taught to measure God's love by the presence of comfort. We assume that if life hurts, He must be gone. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if your darkest nights were the very places where He sat the closest? What if while you were falling apart, He was gathering every piece not just to fix you, but to reshape you into someone more resilient, more awake, more aligned with your deepest purpose? This is not just poetic language. This is the way of Jesus. He doesn't run from pain. He walks straight into it with us. He doesn't rush us through grief. He meets us in it. And He doesn't shame us for breaking. He redeems us through it. But here's the deeper tragedy. Pain doesn't just hurt us. If it's left unanswered, it starts to shape us. It begins to whisper lies into our soul. It tells us that we're not just people who went through pain. It tells us we are the pain. It turns wounds into identities. And suddenly, you're not just someone who was rejected. You begin to live like rejection is your name. You're not just someone who experienced loss. You start to believe loss is your destiny. But that's not the truth. That's not who you are. You are not your heartbreak. You are not your trauma. You are not your mistakes. You are not the labels others gave you when they couldn't see your worth. You are who God says you are, chosen, known, held, loved. And that's not just a nice phrase. That's a truth He is fighting to restore in you right now. Jesus didn't die to make you stronger on the outside. He came to rewrite your entire identity from the inside out. You are not defined by the worst thing that ever happened to you. You are defined by the One who never left you while it was happening. The pain you walked through wasn't meant to define you. It was meant to refine you. But yes, refinement is hard. Growth is painful. Being stretched is uncomfortable. The crushing seasons feel unbearable. And yet, it's in the pressing that the oil flows. In the crushing that the power is produced. God does not waste suffering. What felt like destruction was preparation. What looked like the end was actually the breaking of the shell that held the real you. The version of you that's not afraid to feel anymore. The version that doesn't need to be perfect. The version that can stand in front of others and say, yes, I've been broken, but I'm not broken anymore. I've been wounded, but I found healing that goes deeper than scars. Let's stop romanticizing comfort and start recognizing the sacredness of the fire. The truth is, there are some lessons you can't learn when everything is going well. There's a kind of wisdom that only grows in the soil of struggle. There's a kind of love that's only formed when your heart has been shattered and somehow still chooses to stay open. When you face loss and come out with compassion instead of bitterness, that's transformation. When you're betrayed and still choose integrity, that's spiritual maturity. When you've been unseen and still choose to see others, that's the kind of depth Jesus formed in you through the fire. You might look at yourself right now and see only the cracks. But those cracks, they let the light out. The same Jesus who healed the blind and raised the dead, he's still healing today. Not always by removing the pain, but by revealing the power through the pain. Because he's not just trying to make your life feel better. He's preparing your life to carry something eternal. Your heartbreak is not just a wound, it's a well of empathy, a well of anointing, a well that others will drink from, because your story will become someone else's survival. So today, I challenge you, stop asking why did it happen and start asking what is it producing? Stop rehearsing the pain and start releasing it to the one who can turn your ashes into beauty. Let Jesus show you that he was never absent, that he never turned his face away, that he's been holding your story in his hands the entire time, not to end it, but to rewrite it with grace, power, and redemption. And if you're still in the middle of your story, if the answers haven't come yet, if the healing still feels distant, know this: the absence of clarity is not the absence of God. The silence you hear is not abandonment. It's the pause before the next miracle. It's the quiet before the breakthrough. And even now, yes, even now, he is working in places you cannot see, preparing a future that makes sense of the past, writing a testimony out of your tears. This is not the end. This is the becoming. There comes a moment in life when we must decide, will we keep dragging the old version of ourselves into every new season, or will we finally lay it down and allow something greater to emerge? Many of us are not stuck because God is punishing us. We're stuck because we're clinging to an identity that no longer serves who we're becoming. We keep returning to toxic patterns, unhealthy mindsets, and relationships that shrink us, not because we enjoy them, but because they are familiar. But growth is not found in familiarity. Growth begins the moment we are willing to let go of who we were, even if it scares us. There are days you'll wake up and still feel the ache. That doesn't mean you're broken. That means you're in process. And God is not in a hurry. His goal is not your perfection. His goal is your transformation. He's not shaping you into someone who looks strong on the outside but collapses inside. He's shaping you into someone whose strength is rooted in grace, quiet, steady, unshakable. And maybe, right now, you're not even sure who you are anymore. You've worn so many masks, played so many roles, survived so many seasons. You've forgotten what your own voice sounds like. That's okay. God hasn't forgotten. Jesus never defines you by your confusion. He meets you in it. He doesn't shame you for losing your way. He walks into the fog and finds you. The journey back to your true identity isn't about figuring everything out. It's about coming home. Coming home to the truth that you are more than your job, more than your status, more than your success or failure. You are a child of the living God, handcrafted with purpose, loved without condition, and redeemed beyond your imagination. But here's what makes all the difference. Once you start healing, once you start waking up to who you truly are, you're not just meant to keep that to yourself. You're called to reflect it. You become the living message. You become the evidence that God still restores what's been lost, that he still turns weeping into joy, that he still rewrites shattered stories. You become a carrier of light, not because you're perfect, but because his grace shines through your scars. This world doesn't need more noise. It needs people who've been through the fire and still carry peace. It needs voices that speak truth when everything feels fake. It needs hearts that have been humbled and yet still burn with love. And that can be you, not in some distant future, but right now, right here. If you're willing to surrender, if you're willing to heal, if you're willing to believe that what's ahead is greater than what's behind, you can be the miracle someone else is praying for. So let this be your moment. The moment where you stop apologizing for your story and start owning the power in it. The moment where you stop trying to be enough and realize that in him you already are. The moment where you choose purpose over perfection, process over pressure, and transformation over appearance. Jesus never called you to pretend. He called you to be free. And freedom starts not when everything changes around you, but when everything changes in you. You are not too far gone. You are not too late. You are not forgotten. You are being formed in the quiet, shaped in the fire, called in the stillness. So take a breath, let go, surrender, heal, and walk forward, not as who you used to be, but as who you were always meant to become. This is the invitation. This is the calling. This is the life that waits for those who dare to say yes, not to religion, but to restoration, not to rules, but to relationship, not to performance, but to peace. This is the way of Jesus.